TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app. Good evening, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is kind of an late edition of the Midday Market Report with Brady Tinker for June 4th, 2024. We did a show a couple weeks ago, and I says, obviously, if we get one or two teams in from Dallas into the championships, love to have you back. And so we're back. We only got the Mavs in as they start against the Celtics on Thursday in TD Garden. The Stars flickered as we were talking backstage, up 2-1 and up 2-0 in Edmonton game 4, and then they lose 3 straight. We'll talk some Cowboys. We'll talk the sudden passing of Larry Allen. We'll talk CD Lamb. Now Justin Jefferson's paid. Is CD next? I can't wait to hear what Brady has to say there. And, of course, we'll get his closing thoughts on the Chiefs and Mr. Mahomes as OTAs and all that fun stuff is on the way. Shout out, of course, to Mr. Daniel Berry, Sports Highlights. Happy Tuesday evening, Mr. Berry. Last, before we go live with Brady, as he's getting everything all together here, shout out to our proud sponsor and partnership, WagerWire. If you have not downloaded the app, head on over to Google Play, download it. It's free. Travis, Zach, myself, the rest of the team, community, Amber, the list is endless on social media. Go download the app. Go on to Twitter. Follow WagerWire. Follow the rest of the community. I promise you, they won't let you down, and you'll be smiling. A lot of good content, some great guests. So without further ado, let's bring in the star of this show, Mr. Brady Tinker.
Good evening, friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, just keep surviving. The weather is nuts here. I know a lot of people across the country are suffering from similar things, but these waves of weather and rain mixed with hail, mixed with 70-mile-an-hour straight line winds has been crazy. And as you know, I'm selling houses as well. And so every morning I get up and I've got, luckily, 5 signs in the yards and a couple of more coming. And I call everybody and say, is there a tree on your roof? Right? I mean, what happened? Did something happen? Because especially if we're luckily, we're not, luckily or not luckily, I'm not under contract at this point, and I'm not in some, 30-day waiting period where if something happens, the contract gets torn up or null and void. But I want to be in that position again. But these 4 or 5 houses will sell, a couple more coming. So I'm having a good time. Any of you that are in Dallas that need my help, I work with a great team. The Clifford Freeman Group here spends more money marketing than any other brokerage in town, and we sell houses. We sold 567 houses as a team last year in a very down market. So I'm really happy to be doing this, but I miss spending full time doing what we do. I miss a lot of things about the business that I'm not getting to do all of now. So I'm happy to do this with you as often as possible.
Well, we want to see you very successful selling houses, making boatloads of money, and then come back to us whenever we need you. And then we'll get back onto me and you and a dog named Blue and all those other podcasts. How's that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll answer the phone.
Before we dive into the Dallas sports area, I got to ask you this because I know you're an avid golfer. We got the Memorial, we got Jack's Place this week, and then the U.S. Open on Father's Day weekend. Give me your thoughts, what you're seeing. You've been watching golf, you've been following. Any news? Are we expecting a surge from Jordan? What can you tell us in golf here, Brady?
I don't know. We talked about Jordan a little bit a couple of weeks ago. I think if Jordan called me and asked me, and he won't, I would say, can you just get off the machines and go back to playing golf? Because the Jordan that I always knew when he was a little kid, when I would be like why is this kid going to be a big deal? He weighs 104. I mean, I met him when he was 14. I'm like, and he got stronger, but even forever, Jordan played much like Tiger does. He's played every shot that he saw. So if a fade was demanded, he played a fade. If a draw was demanded, he played a draw. Never worried about missing because he had the best short game in the world. He made more putts outside of 20 feet than any of us ever saw. And maybe some of that is cyclical, and there are percentages that say you just can't do that for an entire career. But I think Jordan needs to get out of his head and think less and just go play golf. I don't think that the machines necessarily help Jordan, or 50 swing thoughts or anything else. And I'd like him to let me cat him for a couple of days, and I won't say anything intelligent, so he won't really want to talk to me as much as he talks to his caddy. He talks to Michael all the time. And sometimes I think, just go hit the next shot. Just go hit the next shot. I once talked to a guy who said, I can't remember what his name was, but he was on the tour, and he said, I knew I wasn't going to make it on the tour when in my second year I was at Westchester or somewhere, and he says, I walked to the first tee, and Mr. Palmer walked up and said, mind if I play along with you? I need to play a few holes to get ready. And he was like, of course. And he said, Arnold stepped up and lashed the ball, and it faded and hit a couple of trees and dropped down in the middle of the trees on the right. And he said, I got up and took much more time than he did, deliberately hit it, mishit it a little bit on the club, but it was down the middle. And I'm sort of still thinking about the lack of a perfect hit. And I'm looking, and he says, I look up and Mr. Palmer's already whacking his second shot out of the trees. And the point was, thinking, and I'm in my own head, it's a damn practice round, and I'm worried about a hit that's an eighth of a degree off, and Mr. Palmer's out there just playing golf. And he's like, okay, I'm not sure that I've ever been there mentally where I just trusted everything that I was going to do, and I just went and played golf. And I think Jordan just needs to go back to playing golf, because it doesn't have to look perfect, and it never looked perfect. And that's what I would love to see him do. I mean, he's already had a good career, but I remember having a conversation with him 3 years ago, let's say at the Byron Nelson. And the great thing about him is, if you ask him a good question, no matter who you are, he will give you a good answer. And he was really wrestling with the fact that he wasn't as good as he was in his first 2 or 3 years, right? And what year was it? 15, when he was just unbelievably brilliant. He won 3 of the majors and the Players and this and that and the other. And he had a year that maybe only 4 or 5 players in the modern era have ever had. And he said, I still wonder why I'm not as good as I was, or what I have to do to get there. And I just basically raised my hand, and I'm like, can you make room for the fact that you had one of the best years in the history of this game? And that includes everyone. And maybe you're as good as you're going to get, but you're number 1 or 2 or 3 in the world. And that's pretty fucking good. And could you just go play? And he took it really well. And he was like, yes, those are conversations that I'm having with myself and with other people. And what he said was, very simply, my whole life, every year, let's put it that way, I've gotten better. And I was like, better than 6 wins, 2 majors, the Players, and umpteen million, and number 1 in the world. You got to just be better. Can it be maybe better between the ears, right? Can it be better, more jovial, right? More just hit it and walk and get it. I don't know. And I was never telling him what to do. I was telling him, as someone who really liked him, of, God, I'd love to see light you again, right? Just hitting shots out of the bunkers, knocking chips in, and throwing the club in the air and walking to the next hole. Because all of his group that knew him, which was Scheffler and Thomas and all those guys, were sucking hind tail for him during those years. And when I would ask them, they'd be like, well, that's just Jordan. Jordan does that shit. That's what he does. And now nobody says it anymore. And Justin Thomas is a little bit of a dip, but overall, Justin kind of blew past Jordan a little bit. And certainly Scheffler's, trending towards a Tiger Woods something for the last 2 or 3 years, right? He's got, as Tiger told him, 15 more years to go at that level, but he's, playing amazing, and he never doubts himself, right? So that's why he took a cop for a ride on the side of his car, because who cares? That was wrong, and I don't even comment on that. I take it back. I fully support all of our police officers around the country, 100%.
Kyrie, Luka in town right now, about 45 minutes from where I am right now. Tip off on Thursday. We were talking backstage. Thursday, Sunday. Then I think they come back to Dallas on, my assumption would probably be Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, because they love their Sunday basketball, of course. City buzzing. What's the expectations? You made it. You're the Western Conference champs. Kyrie back in Boston. Luka's been everything we expected of him and more. Some young guys stepping up. Great team, great run. Is it done, or are you expecting one more series here?
Well, I think that those who are grasping reality are worried about a few things. One, it's a beating for Luka because he plays the game that way. He wants people running into him. He stops so they run into him. He still falls down a ton, which you and I talked about off air. How hard do we try to never fall down? Because that shit hurts. And these guys all feel obliged to fall down every single time. And Luka spends a lot of time bitching at the officials, 30% of his time, 20% talking shit to the fans. He doesn't really get into it with the other team very often. I think I find that interesting and probably smart. And then he just takes a beating because he's just, I don't know what the description is. I always call him fat, which sounds disrespectful, but he's not fat. But he's for an NBA player who runs all the time and does what he does. It's shocking how soft he is, but he is stronger than people think. I heard Shaq the other day say, I questioned whether Luka was as strong as people said, and he said, I do believe that he is, right? So sort of poking fun a little bit at his shape, but seeing that he is really, really strong. He's really tough. And if I flip the card and shut up for a minute, I'm sort of sitting the other night watching, and I'm like, I'll tell you what, as much as I push back against this guy, and who knows what that is with me, right? I had such a thing and a friendship with Dirk that I wasn't ready to accept this. The way he came to town from Slovenia didn't match what Dirk did, whatever. I'm a get off the lawn guy all of a sudden, and I get that. And the differences are great. When Dirk got here, he'd never been here. He was terrified. He didn't want to leave home. He didn't know how to do anything, much less go to the grocery store or anything else. So he needed help from everybody, and he took it, and he was kind to everybody. Luka had been in this country at age 13 and 14 and 15 playing professionally. He's been here. He's run the streets of New York as a kid. None of this is new to him. They've been carrying his bag since he was 8 years old. So for me to compare the two or how I thought they received the city or reacted or acted is just an old man. But as someone who played at a relatively high level and loves this game so much, you have to take your time and watch what he does, and not just shots from the logo, right? Whatever. But the ability to score from almost anywhere on the floor at almost any time other than when he gets tired. The ability to see the entire floor, very Magic Johnson-like, very, very, I don't know. I can't really think of anybody else who I thought didn't see it and always saw it. Magic was that guy, right? And there's some comparisons there with their size, right? And Magic was never fast nor looked extremely athletic. So there's some comparisons there. And I got some comparisons really for LeBron in his prime. Now, certainly you can laugh out loud at the athletic difference. I'm not saying that. But the way this kid can control a game is unselfish. And I kind of thought selfish for a long time. But the more I watch, I played against guys and with guys who were so much better than me that they seemed a little selfish. And I realized, well, that's just because I'm not very good. And so he should be shooting more. I get it. So maybe in some of Luka's early years here, as Dirk was going through his thing, right, and the team was just so, Luka looked around and was like, why wouldn't I shoot? Right? Why would I pass to Kristaps Porzingis, which is a topic I want to get to in this series? So I am coming around to the fact that he sees the entire floor amazingly. He seems to get just as big a kick out of an assist or a brilliant pass as he does a basket. And he desperately wants to win all the time. And so if I don't necessarily love the personality or some of those things, screw me. He is phenomenal. And it has to say something about him and Kyrie that they have gotten together, because I was like, no, not enough balls to go around. Too big of egos. Kyrie misses games in chunks. All of a sudden, I'm telling you, these guys are close. And Kyrie has come out to us and just said, listen, I sort of feel reborn. This is a great way potentially to end my career. The city has embraced me. Everyone's embraced me. Nobody prejudged me being a dick or being selfish or anything else. And he and Luka have just figured it out. And then the trades, the Derek Lively draft pick was phenomenal, right? They were able to get him Derek Jones has been a great addition. The Gafford and the PJ Washington trades, which are guys that people are out there who are like, I don't even know who the fuck those guys are. And I get it. But that is kind of the key, is that those four guys, Lively, Gafford, PJ Washington, and Derek Jones, are really the true key to this thing getting to where it's gotten, because those guys play defense and rebound and really don't give a shit about doing anything else, which is perfect, right? Rick Carlisle back in 2011 was like, we won because he said fine to just being a defensive stopper, and he said fine to being a rebounder, and he said fine to being a thug and coming in and getting 4 hard-earned fouls, right? And everybody was willing to give in and give up for the greater good. And this team seems to be on that page. This team really likes each other. They really do. And obviously Jason Kidd's pulling all the right strings. So I think if you said I have to bet a bunch of my money, it would be on the Celtics. I worry about the Celtics' ability to run 4 or 5 different defenders at our 2 top scorers, when I think we can't do that. Our best defenders are the bigs, and they can't probably play Tatum and Brown. So I'm curious about all that and what the Mavericks will do. The Celtics like to switch all the time. So if they're going to switch all the time, then Luka's going to get matchups that he wants, and so is Kyrie. So if that happens, then I think that these two can continue this momentum. I think the Mavericks probably need to get off to a good start. I don't know that they have to win game 1, but they certainly have to win one of the first 2 games. And probably, we'll get to the Stars in a minute, probably much like the Stars needed to do a little bit more, the Mavericks will need to prove that they are not afraid to be physical. And there's not a whole bunch of truly physical guys on this team. Luka is one of them, but mostly it's on the offensive end. So Gafford is a strong, tough guy. Nobody messes with Gafford, but Lively's tall and skinny, and Jones, Derek Jones Jr. is tall and skinny. And so what you have is a fast, athletic team, and you have enough defenders and scorers. I'm not sure. I think that they will have to do some things to show the Celtics that they're not going anywhere. A little rocky moment, right? Hit me again, right? You ain't so bad. I think they're going to have a few of those moments early for the bell to sound and the Celtics to know that this is going to be a long series.
And if I remember correctly off the top of my head, Dallas has not bode well in game 1s. They've done very, very well in game 2s. We will have the rest versus rust. You come back home, like you said, if you can get a split, and I'm thinking you need a split, and I think you got to win both at home. I really do. But again, Another split is, the best of 3. Then you brought his name up. Thoughts on Porzingis? I saw an interview today, and he was almost afraid to answer some of the questions. He will be playing. I think, they'll limit his minutes to 15, 17, 18 on Thursday, maybe the same thing on Sunday, just to see where he's at. What's your thoughts when he was with Dallas, and what's your thoughts today on Porzingis?
The day I will not speak for Luka or anyone else. I will say that the day I met Porzingis, I went in and I asked some of the Mavericks brass, hey, I'm sort of recruiting for a Mavericks basketball show that we're going to do at Del Frisco's, and any thoughts on how I approach Porzingis with some of the younger guys that I knew that were Mavericks media people, and they were like, they laughed, and literally he'd only been there a few days, and they laughed, and they were like, good luck. This over here, him sitting over here and giving you guys 5 minutes is what you get. The rest of it costs you $100,000 an hour, and he will have people around telling you that, and they've already been here. So literally within days of when he arrived to be a Maverick, his people put out the word. Don't call him. Don't ask him. Don't expect anything. He's got his own people that train him. He's got his own people that take care of him, that get him healed. Just the answer is no. And then when he was here, are you playing tonight? All too often, the answer was no. And a lot of times the coaches and the trainers and the people that I knew behind the scenes were like, lower body injury, sinus cavity injury, whatever. He's not playing. And so Luka did not take long to, from my point, not care at all for Porzingis. And Porzingis hanging around 4 feet behind the 3-point line, Luka could look at him like, sort of what I talked about earlier, right? I'm here just one-on-one and you're there, and I should just give this thing up with 12 seconds left to go so you can do that, and then you still won't get back to really play defense because you're not physical. Luka has, in my mind, a complete and utter disdain and dislike, and I don't think it's personal in terms of I just don't like his personality. He hated him from the word go, from the way Porzingis approached the game as to the way he approached the game. And then Jason Kidd is completely pure in the way he approaches the game. So Porzingis never fit in here, never felt liked, and Luka did not. There was no point where I could say to Luka, "You guys warming. Is it important to you and to the team that you and Porzingis get going?" The answer would have been, "Fuck no." No. So I think Porzingis on the floor, even though he's had a pretty good year when he has played for the Celtics, is good news, because if you want to throw big red meat out in front of Luka and have Luka stay completely on point about winning, it will be when Porzingis is on the floor. And I don't think he has to be on the floor. I think he will look at him and talk to him throughout this entire series. So I actually think Porzingis as a Celtic works in the Mavericks' favor. I really do. And plus, when he's on the floor, Al Horford's probably not. And Al Horford's basketball IQ at 38 years old and the way he plays is a coach's dream. It's just a coach's dream. So they're better, in my eyes, they're better with Al Horford on the floor than they are Porzingis.
Well, I assume, my assumption probably is that you got Jason, you got Holiday, you got Brown, and then is it Horford and Porzingis with White coming off the bench, or did they have Porzingis come off the bench on Thursday? So it will be interesting. And again, the rust versus rest, not that, you've had a few days off. The Celtics seems like they haven't played in forever. The Garden will be jumping. So high expectations. I think the Celtics around 225 minus. You can get Mavericks around 2-1. Plus 195. So we'll see what happens in game one. Obviously, we'll reach and circle the wagons next week, see how the series is going, see what your schedule is just for a couple seconds if we can. Sure. Stars, I was talking, I've said this on some numerous shows. I'll say it again. In January, we landed on the Stars to win the West, to win the Cup. We had some great tickets on them. Really liked the way they were playing. Ottinger caught fire. Big, huge Wyatt Johnston fan. You have some seasoned veterans there with Sagan and Pav, and the list is endless. And up 2-1, up 2-0 in the first 5 minutes of game 4 in Edmonton. Then a switch went on, and Edmonton rattled off 5 straight in that game and beat you 5-2. Then they go to Dallas and they beat you 3-1. So now you're down 3-2, come back to Edmonton, down 2-0, 2 power play goals. McJesus, McDavid, that first goal, the puck was on a string. It was just so phenomenal. And then, as you said, he set up the second one. At one point, outshot him 35-10. That old teabag, don't get work until you're in hot water. It wasn't enough. As I said, I didn't see Grant Fuhr. I didn't see Paul Coffey. I didn't see Andy Moog back there. It was a guy named Stuart Skinner. MVP steals it. Thoughts on the Stars?
Well, Stewie is one thing. They probably didn't do a good enough job. Everybody kept telling me they've got to work the puck side to side more to make him move, because he's a giant man. And they played a lot of those, whatever shots, 39 shots or whatever they got for that game, went right into his stomach. And it was easy to see that not a lot of ricochets were coming back. So they weren't getting as deep as they needed to. Those were, I wouldn't say they were empty shots. I always think these guys don't take enough shots, right? But there were some empty shots there that were relatively easy for him to see and to glove. But I also felt like they were unlucky at times. They had 2 or 3 odd man rushes. They had some opportunities where it was evident they were absolutely going to score and didn't. And really, even right to the end, the last 90 seconds, right? What always ends up happening is the other team gets the puck and shoots and makes an empty net goal to finish the game off. It didn't happen. The Stars peppered them for, almost the full 2 minutes. And I would say 6 pucks went right in front of the goalie, right? And several of them he didn't see. The one that went off the post, he didn't even see, right? Which I know happens. So they were a little bit unlucky, but I just think the way the series flipped in Game 5, and then the way that game began, and I'm now going more on just emotion and how I felt and how, as an athlete, I felt. The way Game 5 ended, and then the way Game 6 began with utter brilliance from their best player with those 2 goals. There's nothing you can say. You know what I mean? If you're a great athlete and someone's great, and you just recognize it. And that goal and that assist were, hey, he's just freaking fantastic. And all of a sudden, maybe it creeps in, gosh, we gave up Game 5. Gosh, we had a big lead in Game 4, et cetera, et cetera. Those things, it's human nature, right? And they fought, and I thought they looked quick and quicker, to be honest with you, than Edmonton a lot of that game. I thought they looked quicker. They looked a little deeper, but it didn't translate into goals. And in the end, I think the team that was supposed to win once Game 4 started, won. I do, and I'm disappointed, but I'm not mad. I don't think anybody screwed me, or that there were any grievous errors. I think they were waiting. The Stars were waiting for Pavelski, who's 39, to make a big spark play or two. The coach said it before and after almost, or at different periods of almost every game. He's going to do something magical. He's going to do something magical. And he was out there, and he took his shifts, and he worked his ass off. As you said, it's maybe a father time thing, because Pavelski last year had 6 or 7 magic goals in their playoff run, and this year essentially none. I thought Ottinger was pretty darn good. I thought, for what I know, I thought that they were well coached. I thought they were a really good team. I just think the best team won. And as we all know, in these series, whatever, whether it's NBA or NHL, there are sways and moments, and then there are those that are hard to come back from. And Game 4 and Game 5 made it tough for the Stars in Game 6, especially. I knew in Game 6, and I bet you said the same thing, if the Stars are going to win, they need a lead. And they didn't have a lead. They were immediately 2 brilliant goals behind. And man, you just get kicked right in those lower testicles enough, and you're kind of like, God, I'm sick in my stomach. God bless. I got it. I'm coming. Here I come. But it was a brilliant series. I had fun watching. I'm sorry that we're not going to get to watch them in the Stanley Cup Finals, because playoff hockey is wonderful. Just wonderful.
We're going to go over to the Stars. I mean, that's the star on the helmet, of course. We talked a couple times now, Brady, and you've made it very clear that Jerry says it's time to pay up, boys. You use the credit card. There's 3 big cogs involved here: Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah. Justin Jefferson, 4 for 140, 105 guaranteed. So he's basically got a 3-year deal, a 35 per. Thoughts when you saw that? And does this help the Lamb cause? Will this speed up the cause, or is this going to be a sit and wait? Okay.
No, it's going to speed up the cause. Stephen Jones actually told us today, we are now speeding up this process. And actually, he inferred it really wasn't us who slowed this process down. CD wanted Justin Jefferson to sign. That's what he wanted. So now he's got AJ to refer to, right? He's got Amon-Ra to refer to, and he's got Jefferson to refer to. So his agent's right where he wants to be. They're right where they want to be. And Stephen acquiesced today of, yes, this particular player situation will now speed up. Wouldn't surprise me if it's in the next couple of days.
I don't know. I'm just outside looking in. I mean, I'll just use a fantasy thought process. CeeDee Lamb is the first wide receiver going. In my process right now, it's CMC, Breece Hall, then CeeDee Lamb, or CeeDee Lamb sometimes second, and then for wide receivers, CD. Then you got that group of Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase. Where's he going to, and Justin Jefferson, of course, where do you think he's going to fit? 32, 33, or does he want Justin Jefferson money?
No, I don't think he has to have Justin Jefferson money. It'll be somewhere close. I don't think he's going to insist on matching Justin Jefferson money. I don't think, from what I've heard. He just wanted the bar to be there. So it'll be the guaranteed money. So CD is going to be looking for $100 million guaranteed, which is essentially what Jefferson got, and he's going to get it. He's going to get it. He's going to get paid, and he never wasn't. the question with this Cowboys roster is Brandon Cooks actually, when called upon last year, was pretty good, and Brandon Cooks is a pretty good player, but he has a little bit of a history of getting hurt, and he has a little bit of a history of checking out a little bit, and we didn't see that here last year. But past those two, there's no other wide receivers on this team. So they're really hoping Jalen Tolbert can take a step up enough that he can be on the field for 35% of the plays. And Jalen Tolbert tantalized us a bit his rookie year with some special catches, with a wide catch radius, with some really good feet, and then went in the first game, I think, of his rookie career and sloppily stepped out of bounds on a touchdown in the back of the end zone. And all of a sudden everyone came down on him and he was a little sensitive about it. So he needs to be good. Past that, then they will turn to Jake Ferguson, who I think is a really good fantasy option this year. Not sure I've decided how early, but he's probably a top 5 or 6 tight end this year. Dak loves to throw the tight end. Their chemistry is really good. And everything I hear, Dak's not getting paid. He's not getting this money. I really think that this is Dak's last year in Dallas. And if they win the Super Bowl, or maybe get to the Super Bowl and lose, then maybe he gets a contract. Past that, he's not. So when Jerry's told everybody here and they're all excited, we're all in, what he means is, I'm already all in. There is no more. Stop coming to daddy, because you've been coming to daddy since 1996, and the shit really hasn't worked. And I gave everybody their money, and for the most part, nobody that I paid mega money to has been phenomenal. Nobody. So I'm done, and I'm not afraid to look at Trey Lance. And we talked about that last week. The Cowboys gave a 4th for Trey Lance, but Dak, Cooper Rush, and Trey Lance are all up this year. None of them has a contract past this year. So that's an interesting place. How much does Trey Lance get to play? Because I would think McCarthy's not going to let him play much, right? Maybe he starts all the preseason games, but that's it. He's going to have to make a major impact for them to think about signing him, and then it's going to have to take 2 years and more of a prove it deal if you want to stay, or we'll look to see if we can get our 4th or 5th round pick back and trade him right before the season starts. So that's all interesting. If I was a fantasy player, I would say that Dak's been a pretty good fantasy player most of his career, and that this will wake him up. This is an FU year, to whether it's to Jerry or anybody else, and as long as CD stays focused, they'll be fantasy dreams. The problem is, I don't know that they can run the football, and I don't know that they can block for him up front. It's a new left tackle. It's a new center. Their best player on the offensive line, Zach Martin, is getting older. He has taken a beating. He's a Hall of Fame player. And then you flip the coin and you say, what about defense? Well, DeMarcus Lawrence is their best pass rusher here, because they let the young kid go. And Sam Williams maybe is a comer, but DeMarcus Lawrence has had 4, 6, and 4 sacks. So it's not like he's probably going to 14. He got his big contract. He's almost done. So I don't know how they're really going to play defense effectively on the defensive line. The secondary is very good. And remember, Mike Zimmer was here and was very effective here with Parcells, and is a good coach and is a good defensive coordinator. I don't doubt that. But this group loved Dan Quinn, and 4 or 5 of these guys regularly in the last 3 years went to the Pro Bowl with Dan Quinn, and they led the NFL in turnovers with Dan Quinn the last 3 years, and that's gone. And he didn't quit. He didn't get mad. He got a job. But that's a lot. So questions on the offensive line. Who's running the football? Rico Dowdle averaged 4.1 yards a carry and scored 2 touchdowns. I like him. I think he's got chutzpah and whatever other colloquialisms I can come up with. And he's likable. I like everyone. But that's not an NFL every down running back. And they showed last year, and maybe it'll change, that they don't even believe Deuce Vaughn is big enough that the wind won't blow him down. So he doesn't even get a look. So I don't know how they're going to run the football. I don't know how the offensive line is going to hold up. And that's the only thing that could hold Dak and CD back from attaining the heights that fantasy players want them to, is that Dak gets hurt because of this, right? Or something happens, or that he's just, if he has to survey too much, as we know, if he has to think too much, if it's not in rhythm, then he's not at his best.
And you answered a lot of my questions in regards to Pollard has left the building. You brought Zeke back. You got Rico. And then, as you said, Deuce Vaughn. Sean Childs was so high on Deuce. And I drafted him a lot last year. And then I think by week 3, 4, 5, I had seen enough. I'm like, nah, he ain't making this. But are you going to get someone off the scrap heap? Who do you have back there? You have Zeke. You have Rico and you have Deuce, right?
Yeah. And so I imagine you're going to ride Rico to the tune of 15 carries, hopefully, right? Zeke gets 6, and hopefully there's some red zone because that's where he's been the best the last couple of years. His yards per carry are not good, worse than not good. But they're counting on Zeke lifting the locker room a little bit. The Zeke factor is one that they liked and that they lamented not bringing back last year. But I don't know how that proves especially effective. I really don't. So let's see what Schottenheimer and McCarthy can do that works best for Dak. But Dak's been here a long time. I think we know who Dak is. And CD is going to be paid. Does it affect him? Right? Does it affect him negatively or positively? I don't know. I can't tell you that I know him well enough to know what I think. He's an incredible talent. He and Dak have that good chemistry of sort of, we don't even have to look at each other. We know when he's getting the ball. We know how he's going to cut a route off and all of that. So that's all special. But I don't know how this team wins more than 9 games, maybe 10, and it wouldn't shock me if they won 7. And I think also, while the Eagles have had a turnover, they're still the best roster. And I thought that their quarterback was hurt most of the year last year. And I do think he has the fire that burns within him to be great. When that Super Bowl where they lost to the Chiefs, he made every single big throw there was to make. He made one mistake, right? He basically fumbled a ball that the Chiefs scooped and scored and probably ended up being the difference in the game. But he was fantastic. And I thought last year, all year, he looked hurt. He looked slowed. Maybe it's time to take whatever the damn thing is he does with the quarterback sneaks away, because it's a beating. I mean, there are, there's 2,500 pounds worth of man most of the time laying on him when that's over. And who knows what they're doing to him down there. So I know it's effective. And maybe if you're the head coach, you just don't give a shit, right? As Wade Phillips once said to me, I'm just going to ride my horse. And I said, what do you do when your horse dies? And like, get another horse. But I don't think that you do that with quarterbacks in this league. And I wonder how much more I would continue to send him in. And maybe he wants to keep doing it, because you score 14 touchdowns as a quarterback and throw 30, you get paid a lot of money. So maybe he's not afraid of his career ending a little bit soon, because he'll be richer and maybe better for it. But I think the Eagles are a lot better than the Cowboys.
And I'll switch gears for you there in regards to the 3 years in a row Dallas has won 12 games. Their under-over is 10.5. I definitely could see a step back with them. And you nailed the Eagles. There was no sense of urgency on Hurts's face. It was just like, hey, they came out guns a-blazing, and then they pooped themselves the last 8 games, and then they got blown out in Tampa. What I do like is both their star wide receivers are now paid, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They brought over Saquon Barkley, a little FU to, the rest of the East there. And I do expect a sense of urgency from Jalen Hurts this year. I definitely think the Eagles are the team to beat. The only thing I'll be interested in is the game that we're going to get to. We're going to talk Chiefs after this. Chiefs open up at home against Baltimore on the first game of the NFL on that Thursday. Well, the NFL being the NFL, on Friday, the Eagles are playing the Packers in Brazil. So I don't know what kind of flight back and forth to Brazil and what that's going to be all about, in that next game back. So as a Dallas fan, maybe you hope for a little too much partying in Brazil, come back with a loss with the Eagles, and then, the toll will take their toll there. So before we wrap up, it has been a off season from hell for your Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, every other day there's someone in the newspaper, on TV, Racy Rice, drag stripping in a Dallas highway, whatever, running from the scene, then a barroom scene, and then this guy gets busted with marijuana, this blah, blah, blah. What the hell is going on in Kansas City?
They've won 2 straight Super Bowls, right? In 3 and 4 years or 5 years or whatever. So with that comes adoration, especially from fans and women and hangers on and all of it. And it's a lot for them to deal with. The NFL does a lot to try and teach them to invest their money properly and make good decisions. They really do. They as rookies, especially, they go through mandatory classes and hours of listening. But I think COVID changed a lot of things, and that may be one of them. I think a lot of those conversations now didn't end up being in person for a couple of years, right? They ended up being like the rest of us, Zoom, like we're doing now. And there's something lost in translation no matter what when you're Zooming, unless it's with a best friend or a loved one, right? There just is. You can check out. I can turn to my right here, and you don't really know that I'm looking at another computer. I could, I think there's some of that. So some of this gets lost, and there's so much money that it's, I mean, Andy can't track them all, right? And there are people on every NFL team. I promise you, I've been here covering the Cowboys forever. There are people tracking, tracing, watching, cars pulling up to make sure that these guys get from one place to the next without DUIs. I mean, they're as Parcells used to say. I asked him about Lawrence Taylor, and he's like, "Well, I treated him differently." And there's now a ton of that with maybe on a good team, half a dozen guys, right? The partiers, right? And so they're in the scenes behind them. There are black town cars and big black SUVs pulling up to help these guys make the good decisions all over the place, and they still don't. And most of it, in all of my aged years, most of it comes down to when I have private conversations with these kids, they still hang out with the wrong people. And so therefore they get pressured into bad decisions. Don't forget where you came from. Remember that time I didn't let you get beat up by 6 people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're not better than us. You're still the same guy from the east side or the south side or whatever. And then you get drunk and you mix in a little marijuana because everyone does it. And then you make bad decisions. So I will say, I think I told you this last time, after the fact, I have been able to unearth that at least 4 and maybe as many as 6 to 8 teams took Rashee Rice of the SMU Mustangs off their board completely before the draft. Now, I had not heard that, and I made all the same arrogant assumptions. His grades apparently were pretty good at SMU. SMU is not an easy school to skate through unless they just let you. So I was like, well, I love the pedigree, and it wasn't against the best competition, so it might take a little while. But he's built like a brick house, and when he catches the football, it's very much like some of my favorite players ever. He turns and runs north and south. Jerry, they would always say Jerry's not very fast. Well, it doesn't make any difference. He's not going this way. He's going straight that way. And I love those guys, in a different body. Anquan Bolden would catch the ball and turn around and run straight that way. Come tackle me if you want to. I'm right here. And I loved it. And so Rashee has that. And they finally, in a very complicated offense, really got a lot going, as we all know, in the last 8 weeks of the season. But I'm not sure that they will bring him back, especially if there are actually charges brought and he has to face felony charges of assault or something for what happened in the bar. The underbelly that I'm hearing here is that's all going to go away, that it was in some forms a setup and that really less happened than is being made of it, right? He pushed him back, shoved a camera back or something as innocuous as that. If that goes away, then he's got a chance. But I would imagine the NFL, and you never know when that's going to come. They can do it right now if they want to, but I would imagine the NFL is going to impose 8 games. I don't know, and maybe more, maybe 10 and reduce to 8. I mean, the bottom line is he was the instigator in the middle of what turned out to be a chain reaction of, I don't know, 4, 5, or 6 cars. I'm sorry, I don't know, but they grabbed their guns from what I hear and put them in a bag because they were worried about that. No doubt the state of their physical bodies in terms of what they had been doing probably wasn't great, except it was only like at 7 o'clock at night. And they left, and not one of them, and one of these humans said, what if we hurt somebody? What if someone is back there bleeding out and we're bigger, faster, and stronger and could put pressure on it and we could save a life? What about that? I don't know if anyone thought about it, but no one did anything. They left. And as far as humanity goes, it's pretty close to unforgivable. I'm glad that there wasn't a kid that died. I'm glad that didn't happen. But I grew up in Kansas City, and the Get Off My Lawn group especially will not want this kid to be on the team. They won't. And if he's not on the team, then you're kind of back to where you were last year. He'll figure it out. Who does he throw the ball to? Except he's running a gauntlet of a schedule here, and there is no time for them to work their way into the season, which is kind of what they've done the last 4 years. They've been a little 2-1, 3-2, 4-2, and then the second half they sort of figure it out, and Andy's brilliant and Pat's Pat, and they figure it out. But I don't think this schedule will allow that. I think Baltimore's completely healthy. If you don't watch out, Baltimore smack you week 1, and I think week 2 is the Bengals, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is no time for the Chiefs to work their way into this. And I don't think they're going to look at it like that. Pat and Andy both want this three-peat, this 3 in a row. It's basically something no one's done. I guess the Packers did it sort of pre-Super Bowl, but I don't think anyone's ever done it. And that would put them in a different plateau or a different level than certainly Tom and Bill. And I think that is something that these two really, really, really want. So I think the focus on this team will be fine. But it's time to get everyone in the building so you can, rankle them and herd them like cats and try and keep them from being stupid. So I don't know. As a fan, and I am that, and I am always that, and that's how I've really approached this job of mine forever. I look at it from a fan's point of view, but I'm a little too close to that group. I think they're 100% where they need to be mentally, and that Andy and his group will have them really, really ready. So, what happens if Rice is out? It makes a huge difference. I mean, it makes a huge difference. Marquise Brown's a good player, but he's not big, and he's not a big target, and he's not easy to find. And so I expect Marquise Brown, if he's the number one, to end up with, you draft him. He ends up with 950 and 7, right? And that's pretty damn good. And does Kelsey look a little quicker this year? I thought Kelsey until the end of the year looked a little plodding, like maybe he'd been galloping around the globe chasing a pretty girl, which he had. And, he'd been everywhere. He was everywhere last year. He was everywhere. He was enjoying life. And Romo and I had that discussion several times. And he looked at me and said, I'm only going to be this young for a small period of time. And so when I'm not in the building, and I don't have to be in the building, if Huey Lewis, for example, calls and says, I'm planning to come to LA, I'm playing wherever, and you can be in the background and we'll play golf the next morning, he's like, I'm going. And I looked at him and like, well, I'm 20 years older than you. And so I would tell you, if I was your father, I would say, fucking A, go. This is the only life you get, so go do it. He will also tell you now that those decisions were bad decisions as it pertained to how they affected the football team. And his young brain did not realize it doesn't matter. And he said to me in the last few years, what I realized was it doesn't matter until it does. And when it does, it's too late. So I hope that somebody sits Travis down, because he signed a 2-year extension. I'm not sure how much longer he wants to play. I know he wants to do this. Wouldn't surprise me if he retired if they won this. Wouldn't shock me if Andy retired if they won this, to be honest with you. But we'll see. But Kelsey needs to be better. He needs to be, and maybe it's just father time, but he looked a little slow. He looked a little plodding. He looked a little tired. And if that's the case, Andy doesn't have Rashee Rice, it'll be harder for them. And I know they did it last year, but I don't really know how they did it other than just 15. I really don't. I mean, San Francisco was clearly the better team. There were teams, the Ravens, I think, were clearly the better team, but they weren't very well coached in that playoff game. And that quarterback ran amok, all of a sudden trying to run around and throw the football. I don't think they're going to do that this year. They have a massive running back. So they're going to go back to playing Ravens football, and that could be tough for the Chiefs in week 1.
Well, we can't wait. We'll have you on, obviously, a lot more, hopefully leading up to kickoffs, maybe even a NBA title to talk about, maybe Jordan or someone gets hot for the U.S. Open, and we'll have a lot more Brady Tinker talk. The Tinker's been going the whole time at A Cowboy Life, at DFW Sports Beat, Off with the Helmets Cowboy Show. Brady, where can they find all your work, brother?
Well, I don't tweet as much as I used to, and I really never tweeted enough. All of my people that supported me and backed me were like, you don't tweet enough. And I just, back to the lawn guy, I wasn't telling you about my kids and my wife and my family. I just wasn't. It's none of your business, and that's not something I do. But at A Cowboy Life and at DFW Sports Beat for X, or whatever they call it now, and the same place for websites with interviews and things that I do. And I appreciate all the support. I've gotten a lot of support in the last couple of years, even though I've been around less, and I appreciate it very much. I love what I do. I love you and so many people that I've had a chance to work with who've given me opportunities, and I'm thankful for all of this. So I'd be happy to come on and do this with you every day. I'd love for someone to step up and say, you two guys are kind of knowledgeable and entertaining, and could we hire you? Yes.
Yes.
But no, not for $3,500 a month. I don't want to live in a box. I just don't.
And prior to anyone looking to sell a home or need to buy a home, where do they find you there, sir?
Well, my group, my brokerage is the Cliff Freeman Group. So if you are Dallas-based or Dallas-Fort Worth-based, clifffreeman.com, just like it sounds, will introduce you to our group. We have literally 114 reps that are signed up with Cliff. And he's gotten rich because he's really good at what he does. And he doesn't even hardly sell houses anymore. And he supports us and helps us find leads and helps us be really good at what we do in all ways. And so I couldn't be happier. It's been a great process. I've gotten very good at selling houses. I'm still, there are still a lot of things in this business where you turn around the corner and you're like, oh, I'm not sure what the answer to that is. But when it comes time to sell your house and get it on the market for 4 or 5 days, tease it, get the pictures out, let everyone, know that this great thing is coming. And then I do an open house on Saturday and Sunday for your house. And a good portion of the time, by the time Sunday comes around, I have a couple of offers for your house. So that part I'm good at, and I've been well trained, and I would love to help you sell your house. I'll help you find one if you want me to, but I'd rather sell it. Just saying.
For myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, the one and only Brady Tinker at DFW Sports Beat, the best in Dallas. I call him the voice in Dallas. He is the star on the helmet. Thank you so much for everyone for watching. It's been a blast. We will see you first thing tomorrow morning.